Welcome to Shop Talk Express and welcome, Nico. It's great to have you. So, Nico, you were with Shell for nearly a decade and you worked across multiple markets. You're now based in Abu Dhabi and working with Shopworks as the Regional Director of the Middle East. So, that's a really exciting, really changing part of the world. So, can you tell me a little bit more about you, about Shopworks, about the region?
Hey, Carolyn. Thank you for having me. So, yeah, it's an interesting region. I recently moved here in the UAE, so joined Shopworks as the regional representative. And there's already a lot of things going on for Shopworks here in the region. We had some clients here, Oman Oil in Oman, Emirat in the UAE, Ola Energy in the African continent, and there's a lot of things happening in the industry in the region here. So GCC or Middle East, it's a very diverse region. There's a lot of different nationalities, a lot of different things going on. There's also a lot of ambition in terms of growing that region across different industries, tourism, finance industries, and so on. So they really want to be at the forefront. And I think what is interesting is that the population here is really young and very digitally savvy. So there's a lot going on. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, about the increasing digitalization and e-commerce? I'm sure that's growing there too.
Yeah, that's for sure. So as I mentioned, the population is relatively young. In some countries, it's like 70%. Let's say Saudi Arabia says 70% of the population is less than 30, right? So they all
Wow.
having their, iPhones and smartphones, and everything they do through an app, right? So for banking, for car loans, for even for your groceries or laundry, everything is in an app, right? And also from the e-commerce point of view, it's a region where it just works. Yeah, the economics works. Yeah, so in some other places, it could be challenging to actually earn money out of the e-commerce and last mile delivery. In here, it is working because there's a demand, ever growing demand for those services, and the cost is relatively low.
Wow. I mean, it's a lot like that in the United States, but we're more age diverse. But I know with my kids, I can't peel the phone out of their hands and they're teenagers, and soon enough they'll be adults and they'll do everything from the phones too. So that's a really cool demographic statistic. So as you said, the delivery and everything else in e-commerce is growing. But then another thing that's been growing in that region is global brands. A lot of new brands are coming in, as I understand. So do you want to tell me a little more about that?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot of internationals present here, again, across industries, be that, let's say, oil and gas historically, but also food and beverage. There's a lot of brands, whatever you have it, you name it, we have it here in the region. But also quite strong local brands are being developed as well. But then whenever those brands are entering the market or developing the market, it's always challenging how to plan the network, how to develop your network, because there's so many different developments going on. There's a new districts literally building, out of nowhere, and you as a retailer would want to follow that development. You want to follow your crowd, but then you ending up having more and more locations, right? So, and you need to be more strict with your CapEx requirement, how you actually making work those locations, because there's not that fastly growing population, right? So you're actually ending up diluting your volumes, be that coffee volumes or fuel volumes. So you need to be smart. And a lot of the retailers, they actually do that. So they coming up with some modular, smaller formats, right? So you can see maybe, Krispy Kreme in a shipping container, or you can see your ADNOC petrol station, which is fully modular, which is all the fuel tanks and C-store offer above the ground, very, quickly installed there. So there's this flexibility of formats that is really needed to develop your network here.
So almost like pop-ups, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really interesting. One other question I wanted to talk a little bit about is electrification. Now that's huge. That's a huge issue all around the world. And it's definitely a very unique situation where you are, since it's a very oil-rich region. Start with an overview of where the region is in terms of electrification, vehicle electrification, and where do you think it's going? What's the future?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. Yeah, $1
That's a
million
big
question, I
question.
guess.
Sorry.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting because unlike a few years ago, EVs now in the spotlight. Yeah, so both from, let's say, government of the region, but also from consumers, right? So everyone is now looking into that, trying to understand how that will work. Definitely, we're starting here from a very low base. Yeah, so if you look at last year, new vehicle registrations for Middle East and North Africa, it was 20,000 new cars registered, and the projection is that by 25, there will be 45,000 new registrations, right? So it's still a relatively low base, but very rapidly growing. And there's a lot of developments going on. So just a couple of days ago, Siemens announced a partnership with the Ministry of Energy here in the UAE to install that ultra-fast chargers across the country, right? So and the good thing is that here in the region, the grids are ready for that kind of load, so you don't need to upgrade your grid. But interestingly, suddenly the Siemens, like not really a mobility company before, becoming a almost a mobility retailer, yeah, competing with those Enox and Adnox of this world. So it's an interesting development from the infrastructure point of view, but also from the consumer point of view. First, as I mentioned, there's interest, but also there's a push from, let's say, manufacturers. So OEMs, they announced, many of them, that they will switch to fully electric lineup of vehicles. So that means that those electric vehicles coming to the region anyway, yeah. So whether consumers want it or not, but they do want it, and they do explore those options. Yeah, unfortunately, right now it's only the premium ones that we have here, but definitely the variety of models will come sooner or later. And one interesting statistics that I wanted to share as well, if you compare GCC region to, let's say, Norway, which is definitely the leader in terms of the electrification, 70% of the regions, they living in a detached house, right? So they have their garages, they can actually plug their cars in. So in GCC, it's quite close. It's around 56% of residents already in a detached estate. So you can actually, again, park your electric vehicle and charge at home, which helps.
Yeah, that's it. That's a struggle around the world, I think, too, and especially with the younger population. Does that have anything? Do you see anything different with that group? Are they asking more for that? The 70% of the under 30 population, are they pushing for more electrification?
Well, I would say that in general, they're more environmentally aware, right? So they want to do something better for the planet, for the climate, right? So and then whatever is available for them to do. So yeah, again, the electric vehicles for now, it's only premium ones, but I think once they're have a better choice, they will go after it. But then interestingly, yeah, so those who live in apartment buildings, they don't have much place to plug in, right? So and this is where the retailers, the classic retailers and the new retailers like Siemens would play a big role for the EV adoption. Yeah.
Well, you have an incredible amount of information that you shared with us today. And the good news is we actually have an article coming out in Global Convenience Store Focus soon, written by you with more details on this. So I invite everyone to please check that out. And I think we're going to do another Shop Talk Live with you. So I'm really interested to continue the conversation. So for now, thank you, Nico, for joining us on Shop Talk Express, and have a great day.
Thank you. Same to you. Cheers.